Hey guys, and welcome back to the Pennies To Pounds podcast with your host Kia. And this is the podcast where we aim to dispel your myths, simplify difficult financial jargon, and rectify your own personal problems. Now this, if you're watching or listening to this, you'll know that this is not coming out on the usual day, and there's a good reason for that. It's because Pennies To Pounds is officially 3 years old. So to help me celebrate, I have a very special guest. He's been on the podcast before. He is, if you've listened to anything about my personal story, he is very integral to that story. So joined with me today is my dad.
Hey.
It took you so long to have a little wave.
Yeah, hey.
Can you believe it?
There we go.
3 years.
Amazing.
3 years. Do you remember when I started it?
Of course, yeah.
What do you remember about it?
Oh, I remember you come up with your concept, your idea, and just trying to get it all together. It was a lot.
That was a lot.
A lot of effort to get it together. And I think you had a lot of sort of self-belief. Can I do it? I think you remember you trying to work out, can I do it? Getting it all together. And getting all the stuff together.
I know it was interesting because I was working part-time at Apple at the time, and I was still at university. And then obviously when everything took off, I was like, no, I want to do it. I want to start a podcast. This is what I'm going to do. And you remember I kept bouncing names to you. I didn't know what name I was going to call it. I had no idea what I was going to call it. I can't remember some of the old names, but I was basically trying to play on different phrases. Obviously, Pennies To Pounds because look after the pennies and the pounds look after you. That's where the name came from.
I think I gave you some ideas. I was trying to give you some Latin names.
Yeah, you was giving me Latin. You were hell-bent on Latin.
The Latin names are good. Well, Latin's kind of,
Yeah, I know, but you were really trying to hammer in the Latin.
Well,
But Pennies To Pounds was the one. When I told you that, you actually liked that one. Because all the other ones I gave you, you was like, no, don't like it. And when I said Pennies To Pounds, you said, actually, I like that one. And that's how we started.
Yeah, it made sense.
Yeah.
It made sense.
It's been 3 years of hard work, 3 years of just, I wouldn't say uncertainty in a bad way, but you don't know what's going to come of it. I started off with just a podcast, as you know. You came onto the podcast in the beginning, and then we hit lockdown. And that's when I started up social channels. So that's when I think I made the Instagram in January and then made the Twitter in March of 2020. And then from there, we had the website, which came out in April. It just kind of grew and grew, and it grew to bigger than what I could have expected it to be. Yeah. But I want to ask you, how is it, I've never actually asked you this, how is it for you seeing me? I mean, you've heard me on the radio, you've seen me on the news, I've got the Channel 4 show out now. Is it weird to you?
Well, of course it is. But the funny thing is, my generation, people my age, we don't do stuff like that. You get a trade, maybe some go to uni, and you just do your job, and that's it. Sometimes people use Facebook, and that's about it. But it's completely surreal because, as I said, people in my generation just don't do it. So yeah, it's kind of odd and it's strange to see you. Like the first time, I'm trying to think the first time I saw you up on a poster or. I can't remember exactly the first time, but it's just very strange.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah. And even the last time, I think probably like to see you when he was on the BBC, what you did the BBC.
Yeah.
That was really strange for me because it was like really big, broadcast, and that's sort of worldwide, potentially.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I kind of, I would say I get a bit giddy and excited.
Yeah.
And I try to tell everybody who will listen.
Yeah.
And even the ones who won't listen.
You just tell them anyway.
They tell them, yeah. if you're lucky enough to be on my WhatsApp circle, you end up on my status.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So.
Yeah. Well, I want to kind of talk a bit more about finances for the younger generation, Daddy. I mean, you are my dad. You taught me about everything that I know when it comes to finances growing up. And I feel like it's only right if you're gracing the podcast that we tap into some of that knowledge, right? Sure. So on the YouTube channel, Pennies To Pounds, I've just now put up a video, which is 20 things I wish that I knew about money in my 20s, right? So I want to ask you, Daddy, what would be some of your key things if you were going back to either 20-year-old you or talking to someone who's in their 20s now, like me? What would be some of the key tips and the key piece of advice that you give them when it comes to managing your money or learning about money?
I think probably the number one is budgeting, understanding your money. It's not even about how much. It's kind of the understanding that you don't need to have the takeaway all the time. You don't need to show off to anybody. You don't really need the latest trainers. You don't need them. You don't need multiple pairs. You just understanding your money and trying to put some aside. I think sometimes it's easy to think, well, I'm young, I need to have fun. Sometimes it's I'm here for a good time, not a long time. Well, no, that's nothing to be proud of. Yeah. You have to think about long term. I know it's boring, but long term doesn't mean we don't have fun today. I think it's that kind of mix between, so if you rebooted me and said to me, okay, start again, 20 something, what would I do? I would just make sure I budget more. I'd give myself a proper budget, how much I'm going to spend, whatever. I'll budget in the nights out, the fun. Mm-hmm. I'll budget in the takeaway every so often, not weekly. I wouldn't even budget it weekly. I would budget a takeaway
like twice a month, something like that.
Yeah, if that, maximum twice a month. Yeah. And with the knowledge I've got today, I could sort of achieve the same thing I achieved, but on a budget. What I mean by that is, if I need to go out and have a takeaway, I'm going to have a delivered food from a delivery company coming in to me. I could achieve that same meal pretty much from a supermarket, even spending a little bit more. If I want to say, I want to have it, if I'm having a pizza, maybe I buy the nicer pizza. They do a nicer pizza, don't they? Mm-hmm. In the chilled range, I have a nicer, but maybe I'll get a nicer pizza and I'll buy a few things and I'll cook that. And I'll spend less than I've had for delivery. I can plan for that because I can buy it, put it in the fridge and eat it at my leisure. I don't have to worry for what time. I can have that and I can save the difference. So it's the budgeting, becomes takeaway, be it for rainy day, cars. It's understanding you can have all of the things you can have. That's not a problem, having a car. But, if I go back to cars is always a good one, actually. So I'm sort of rolling into it. But cars is a good one. If I talk about cars, my first car I had, it was a white Ford Escort, 1984.
Yeah.
It looked really nice. It was just basic. It was really basic. I bought it and I bought it cash, bought off my friend. I paid him some money and I paid him a little bit later to pay it off. It was cash. And my next car was cash. Again, it's understanding your first car, in my opinion,
doesn't have to be flashy.
It shouldn't even be a prerequisite to be flashy. It should just be what's more important than flashy is reliable. Yeah, it's I can afford it. I can afford the insurance. I can afford the road tax. I can afford the running costs. That's more important. How nice if people say, "Wow, look at that car. That's nice. That's great. Well done," and they leave you, and you're still going to make that monthly payment. I don't understand. I don't see the benefit of that. Mm-hmm. If you've got the money, we're not on about. If you've got money, this is not for you. If you've got lots of money, great. Go ahead.
Go and get what you want.
Do what you want. I'm not on about that. I'm on about everybody else. Yeah. Okay. There's no benefit having additional burden on you financially. That's a tip. There's no. What's the point? I would be better off saving for a car, modest car. Keep an eye on the insurance, the fuel, running costs, and it's yours. As soon as you do that, it's an asset. Okay. Oh, but it depreciates. Yeah. Well, yes, but it's yours, and there's no more payment.
That's the difference. I think it's, and I know you and I talk about this all the time. Where it's finance versus buying outright. And I think there's a lot of arguments for both on either side. But in terms of what we're talking about, we often talk about for your first car, right? And I think you and I always say that I'd rather have an older car that I own outright for my first car than have a flashy new car, but now I'm tied down for 5 years with consistent payments that I've got to make. Because one thing that I remember you and I talked about is these finance companies, they don't care. When we hit the pandemic and people lost their jobs and those people had cars on finance, they're not now going to say, oh my gosh, you know what? Keep the car, come back in 6 months and start paying. They don't care. You need to find the money from somewhere. And I think that additional pressure on someone, especially for your first car, is something that you don't need, just to be able to say that you've got a nice car or whatever your reason is. You're better off getting an older car outright.
Talking about cars, I'll give you a car analogy, okay? You remember when you were learning to drive, the instructor would say, well, you look in front of you and then you look at your mirrors left, you look at rear, and you're constantly looking around because you're just trying to have peripheral vision what's going on. We do that with our finances. Also, we're also looking a bit further ahead. You need to know what's going on ahead. What's happening to traffic ahead. Think of that as your finance. So you've got to think about, okay, I have a car. I can afford a £500 payment. That's easy. I've got a good job. That's not a problem. Anything can happen. We had a pandemic, a change of circumstances. Your company changes direction. Lots of things happen. Something crops up in your life. You become a parent all of a sudden. Lots of things happening. Now all of a sudden this payment is now, wow, it's a bit of a burden. Yes, I'm not saying not to have it. People can do it. People do it, and it's fine. But this is the point where when you're really young, that is not a thing you should be having. Yeah, you should, if you can. I would, wherever possible, have your car is bought outright.
Yeah.
Okay, even if it takes you time to save it up. Honestly, a few grand, save it up, and it's yours.
And it's
if
yours.
you lose a job, the car costs you nothing.
Yeah.
You just insure it. And worst case, if you need to get rid of it, well, you can sell it.
Sell it on, yeah.
Obviously the finance is not your car to sell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't own that car.
Yeah.
A lot of people misunderstand that. I hope they go into that understanding that the finance car is owned by the finance company.
Yeah.
Okay. So, it's not yours to sell.
Yeah. I think that's one thing I like about owning my car outright, because I said in the last episode that you bought me my Kia Picanto, right? And I always said, obviously I was at university when I got it. If there were points where I couldn't afford to drive it, or sometimes petrol is a bit much, I'm leaving that car outside the house. I'm leaving it. And worst case, if there was a point where I lost my job and imagine tomorrow I lose all my income, right? And I've got my car now, I will park it on the drive, I will sawn it off, and I'll cancel the insurance until I can afford to drive it again, because I don't have to, once I get rid of all those payments, the car can still stay there. I don't have to figure out, oh my gosh, I've still got to find £480 a month to pay for my car, even if I do all that, because I'm tethered to the finance. And I think that is the one thing when it comes to cars for me. I think obviously there's a few circumstances where I might consider finance, if you're looking for a newer car just in general, or imagine, let's just say you wanted to get, for argument's sake, like a Range Rover, £40,000. You can have £40,000. You might say, I'm going to put it on finance so I don't spend all the money in one go. Whatever your reason may be. But in general, I'm always an advocate like you. Especially for your first car, just buy it outright. It doesn't matter about the car. It doesn't matter about the age. I mean, I'm not saying get a 1980s car now, but you can get a 2006 car, 2008 car and drive it around.
The reason I say that also, because it's so easy. Finance, and credit and debt can be so easy. So you can get the car on finance, and then you say, "Oh, I need a new computer." Well, I haven't got the money, but if I go to the computer store, they will let me finance the laptop. Oh, and then also your mobile phone. Well, okay, I get a contract for 2 years. Or even longer now. They seem to be longer. I've looked at the other day. It's like 2.5 years. Some of these phones are going up now. So you've got another payment. All of those are payments. They're like an anchor, dragging you down all of a sudden. While everything is spinning and everything's great, it's fine. But it's another payment. So what I'm trying to say to you is you're adding another burden onto you. So one of my tips would be budget, and understanding that you don't need to have the best, you don't need to have the flashiest. There's no benefit to you having super flashy car. Well, there's benefit of a new car. Of course, it's more brand new. It's under warranty. It smells good. Listen, I'm not saying there's nothing about benefit to it, but we've got to kind of weigh up what's important to us at the moment in time in our life. And that when you're really young, starting off, so what? People say your car's amazing. So what? Yeah. People say your car looks old.
So what? So it's true. It's true.
So what?
It's true. Who cares?
Quite often people who say, negative things about your assets, your cars and stuff, and normally I don't have a car.
Yeah. I'm walking, get the train.
Or they have a nice car that they can't afford. So yeah, you're not really selling that to me. Your statement there for me is kind of irrelevant,
isn't it? Yeah.
I don't really care what you think about it. It's my car from A to B. I like it and I own it.
You have seen this generation that myself and my brother are part of. Watching us, and those slightly older than me and younger than us as well, what would you say one of the, or maybe one or two of the biggest mistakes when it comes to money you've seen that people make? Is it that people spend too much? Like I've seen people in they're 18, 19 going to like the Shard to eat for dinner, and that's like a norm for them. Whether or not they can afford it is another question. But what would you say is like some of the big money mistakes you see that Gen Z and like the under 30s are making right now?
I think there's a bad, I wouldn't say bad, or maybe a not so good relationship with money. People misunderstand money. They have a credit card and they think it's my money. No, it belongs to the bank. It's not your money. It's a finance. So what I think the biggest problem I see is misunderstanding what money is about. We need money to do things, but we need to be in control of it. It should not be. What we try not to do is not let it get out of control. It's running away from us. We can't control it. Oh, I've got to make a payment here. I've got a 28th. I've got to make a payment here. Oh, can you give me some money? Just tie me over. When I get paid, and I borrow the money. Then when I get paid, I pay you back. Now I'm back. Now I'm less because I had to pay you back. And we go around in a cycle. We need to sort of tame. It's like a wild beast that we're trying to tame, money. And you need to be able to kind of be at peace with money. And it takes time. And I'll be honest with you, people, there's adults my age, they haven't quite got that yet. They are still firefighting, the money problem. Years later, 20 years later, I've known people 20 years later, they still, I've got no money. I'm like... Yeah.
Explain that term firefighting, because you use it a lot to me. I think it's a great phrase in terms of how you used it.
Well, firefighting is, what do the firefighters do? There's a fire, they run around and put fires out, and then they put another fire out, and they're constantly putting fires out, okay? But you're sort of trying to take control of it. Don't let the fire start off with, and we want to put it out, okay? Yeah, it used to be it used to be a little thing advertising, people smoke in bed, and then they call the fire, don't smoke in bed. Don't smoke, number one, but don't smoke in bed, right? Take control. Don't firefight. All you're doing is robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're constantly running around. So take control. Firefighting is just, I'm in control. I'm not letting the fire start off with. I'm refusing to let the fire start. And if I don't let it start, I won't have to put it out because there is no fire. So what I mean by that is, one of the funny things we talk about budgeting, we talked about this over the years, is and one of the things I learned and I taught myself was taking control of money in, money out. Okay? And that's budgeting. You say, what's budgeting? Well, yeah, okay. How could I relate to that in real terms? I know you've spoken about it at length in different places, but for me, it's kind of like, for example, you get paid, a lot of people get paid at the end of the month. So I get paid at the last day of the month. Okay? So then I've got, last day of the month I get paid. Then I've got a number of bills I have to pay. My phone, depending if you live on your own, renting, utilities. I've got to pay, various bits and bobs I have to pay. It's like, well, how about I get paid on the end of the month, say the 30th of the month, right? Okay. And then I'll go to everybody that's possible, say to them, can I pay you on the first week of the month, right? So between the 7th, between the 1st and 7th. So everybody, the utilities, my mobile phone, you can actually contact them and say, you know what, can I? Virtually all of them, they're probably the only ones that won't. Any government entity is really weird. Like if your TV license are probably weird, but most companies will say to you,
like you'll be able to amend the date.
Amend it. So you might have to pay a little bit more 1 month, and now
and then it's back to wherever you want it.
Okay, now if you did that, so if you think about it, I get paid on the 30th. All of my bills come out within 7 days of getting paid. Yeah, I know it's scary. And it's like, ooh, I know it's scary, but it's done. So my mandatory payments are gone. I now can then decide on my budget. So I need to allocate figure X because I need to buy food and I've got to pay travel. I've got to work out my lunches. And yeah, I need to have some fun. So I need to allocate some fun money. So I've decided. And I need to save. So I've worked out this is how much I'm going to put for my remaining bills. This is utilities, what have you, food. And this is how much I can save now. I realize I've worked all out. I've got this amount to save. And so in the first week of getting paid, for example, I mean, if you're trying to get into flow, maybe you'll leave that until the end, until you've worked out that you've aced that. But in theory, we would say I'd allocate my savings money now. This is the savings money. I know how much food is going to cost me roughly, and how much utility, and and I've got some savings. That is my tip. That is how I would see. And what I think your generation people seem to do is just anything happens at any given
go
time.
with the flow, just kind of whatever happens.
Somebody says, "Oh, do you want to go out? We've got this great. How much? Oh, we're going to go out and eat." You're now spent 50, 60 pounds. Bang. You didn't account for that. Then a direct debit comes out middle of the month. Bang. And then you've got to take the car in, get some work on the car. Oh yes, I've got to do that. Bang. And now you get into the end of the month. You're halfway. You're 2 weeks into the month, for example, and you've got nothing.
Yeah, it's true. I think a lot of people feel that. A lot of people kind of
and a lot of times, and I'm going to be controversial now. Do you want
go
to
on?
be
Go on.
controversial?
Oh gosh, go on.
I'm going to be controversial.
Go on.
It's not about how much money you've got. It's about how you use it. Apart from, I have an exception for that. Apart from the lowest paid or minimum wage. You don't know minimum wage. I can't. That's you. It's hard work.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to front that, right? But apart from that, everybody else, it's not about how much money. It's about how you use that money, and it's a simple fact. And I can tell you examples over the years. I remember earning a certain amount of money. I spent that much. I earned more. I spent more. More. So if I went back, why can't I just live like
you were? Because it works there. So even though your income's gone up, you shouldn't technically have to change.
Right. If your boss says you've done great, you've got a promotion, you're now going to get an extra $3,000 a year, for example. You've got to pay tax on that and what have you, so we can take away, take away a quarter of that, I don't know, whatever it is, 3/4 of that. Just say they say you got $3,000 a year extra. Just say, you know what, I'm going to save £1,500 a year now. Okay, so I'm out for tax and deduction. I'm going to have a little bit extra to play with for myself. So why can't I just put £1,500, divide it by 12 and put that every month onto my savings? Why not? Tell you what we do in general, people just keep spending it. Oh, I've got more money. Yay, look at that. There's more money every month now.
Yeah.
I've got a bit more money to play with.
Yeah.
This is the problem. It's not that, and I'll say it again, it's not how much money you have, it's how you use it. That is the key to it. If you were to do what I said, for example, budget yourself out, put your bills together, work out how much I can spend. I'm going out and I'm going to allocate X amount per month to spend on entertainment. Okay.
Yeah. And
I think you've done this tip before where you can have a separate card and this is my money for spending. You can put a bills card, a lot of separate account. But if I know I've got that much allocated for entertainment and going out, then I can't really go wrong because I know, now I'm done. No more drinks. I'm done. Oh, but just tip. No, there's no more drinks. I've decided how much I've got. I'm coming out today with £20, and so the double shots and all of that can't really happen. Maybe I need to drink some nice ciders and stuff like that.
Just kind of.
Yeah, nice ciders. Something, have a shandy. Yeah. So what? Cheaper, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna make that drinks last longer. Not gonna have expensive drinks. And I can budget myself, just relax. It's quite, it sounds like it's hard work, but it's quite freeing. When you do stuff like that, you feel free. It's always been it's always certain schools, they say school uniform. Some have school uniform, some can wear what you want. There's always the pressure of, I've got to look right, I've got to look right.
Yeah, I like school uniform.
School uniform is a lovely, I think it's one of the best. It's a leveler.
Yeah.
We all wear the same.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. So I haven't got to impress anybody. Yeah. And that's what budgeting should be like. It should be, I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm keeping it level. So that is the biggest problem I see coming for youngsters in general. And I think, we can go even further, but others, I mentioned many things about skills and willing to pay for stuff. I think your generation is so willing to pay for stuff. They're not sometimes certain things, I feel like if something they can press on a computer, press a button, they can maybe do it. But if they have to physically do it, I'll pay somebody to do it. Oh, I can't themselves. I know somebody can do it. And this is where more money going down the drain. I've got to lay some flooring. I'm moving into a flat. I'm going to lay some laminate flooring. Well,
pay someone to do it, innit?
When you're paying, do it yourself.
It's true.
Everybody, within reason, pretty much anybody can lay laminate flooring or do it themselves. You don't need to pay somebody to do it.
Yeah.
You can do it. Oh, I don't know. Well, nobody's going to tell me they can't do it when I know people spend all the time on YouTube. Please don't tell me you don't know how to do stuff when you're on YouTube watching all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So you know how to find YouTube, you know how to search for stuff, and people will give you detailed information, step by step how to do stuff. Save yourself some money.
Yes, true.
And it's a great achievement. That's a lovely achievement when you do stuff. So money saving isn't just money in the bank, budgeting like that. It's about what can I do for myself that will allow me to save money, and I don't need to give that money to somebody else.
Yeah.
You know,
agree.
I right now I'm doing DIY and
Yeah,
stuff.
I was going to say, for anyone who's watching or listening, my dad got a new property at the beginning of this year, so March 2022.
Yeah.
And my dad's doing it over. If you have not seen, literally, I think everything but the drive, you've done yourself.
Yeah.
Literally all the rooms. So I'll put it up on the screen if you're watching, and if you are listening, it's Casa della Commodore on Instagram, and you've literally done up. I think the bathroom is my favorite part right now. So I haven't moved yet, by the way, in case you're wondering what I'm saying is my favorite part. But my dad is literally doing everything up right now, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm doing it all myself. I understand that task there. Hey, it's not for the faint of heart. You got to have.
You're doing a whole house as well.
Yeah, I've got skills that I've learned through my trades, and I've learned over the years, so I can tap into that. And
I painted the wall.
Yeah, you did.
Painted my walls.
Yeah, a little while ago.
Okay,
yeah.
but I did something.
I
contributed.
I did something. Right. But so I did myself. But I'm not saying take on and refurbish your whole property. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm on about you can lay the floor, you can paint the walls. People say, oh, I don't. I had a friend of mine said, oh, I don't like painting. It's like I'm like, who's on about liking? It's not mandatory to like something. You can do it. There's many things I don't like. It's neither here nor there. I'm not understanding liking and doing. They're not connected. That you're missing the point. Liking it is a luxury. Mm-hmm. Doing it is a necessity. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they're getting it mixed up. So everybody could paint. They can lay the floor. There's lots of little bits they can do themselves. Lots of things. I understand some things you're not competent in doing. Electric stuff. Yeah, get yourself you need someone competent to do electrics. Get yourself a competent person to do electrics, what have you. But there's stuff you can do.
Yeah.
There's stuff you can do. So yeah, that's where you can save money, and it's empowering. You feel good. You feel like I don't know. I feel good when you've done a task and people say how good it is. And you say, the bathroom, my favorite.
That's great.
The bathroom is like night and day.
Yeah.
And literally, I did everything in that bathroom.
Yeah. And you even, I think we should put it in here. The toilet initially was in another room.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we came and the house was bought and we looked at it, so it was the bath and the sink.
Yeah, the bath and sink
was in
one room.
And then you walk down the hall and then you see the toilet in another.
Yeah, and that's listen. As we said, that's typical for when the property was built in the 30s. They had separate toilets. It was a separate toilet, no hand basin, mind you. So you have to then
leave and
go and go back into the bathroom. Wash. Weird, right?
Yeah, very.
But
weird.
Anyway, yeah. So I had a plans for that other room, and I said no, I'm going to take that toilet, and I moved.
So my dad he moved the toilet into what's now the bathroom. Yeah. Replumbed it again, but this is again not, we already mentioned, not for the faint of heart, not for everyone, but you replumbed it right on the outside. That was a whole, how you did that is over my head. But you did that, and now the extra space, what have you done with it where the toilet was? Yeah,
so that's now being used as your brother's, so he's got a smaller bedroom, so I used that as his sort of closet. I could have knocked the wall and made it into one room, but I said, do you know what, we're going to just leave this little dinky little space, and I've just made it into a closet. So there's a rail there, right? So I made a rail, I put a chest of drawers in there. I even had to, done the doors, I had to flip the doors around because the door opened inwards, but then it takes up space. So I took the door off, made it open outwards on the other side, completely new door and new hinging, so that it gives him the maximum amount of space. So it's a completely separate room. And so it's a separate room, and when the doors are shut, you wouldn't even know what's there. It's a completely different closet. So yeah, I decided that was my plan. I kind of just work out in my head what I want to do.
My dad's the cogs are always turning in my dad's head.
I kind of always think about what could I do, and I might change my ideas. Once again, this is the kind of thing. There's no shame. I change ideas all the time. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do it. No, I'm going to do it this way. I debate with myself what I'm going to do, and then I come with a plan. And when I'm happy, I execute. So that's what I do. But yeah, so there's many ways of saving money, and like I said, I did the DIY, and I'm doing it myself because I can. I had a bit of time, so I utilized my time to do that. But there's nothing stopping you. People might say, "Oh, hang on, but I go work all week. I haven't got time. Weekends, I want to have fun." Well, yeah, okay. I'm £1 million. But we don't worry about that. You got to do what you got to do, and sometimes it might be, like I say, saving yourself money. Maybe the weekend, it's like we're gonna get ourselves a nice, a good pizza, a nice luxury pizza from the supermarket, and a nice garlic bread, and a nice bit of little bits, and we're gonna do some DIY or whatever it might be, or we're gonna sit down and knuckle down on working out whatever it is you need to do, be it working on your side hustle, whatever you need to do. I'm using my time wisely. Going out the house, see my friends and doing that. Well, listen, once again, it's great to see friends. I'm not knocking that. It's great contact. It's great. But, you got to kind of think to yourself, well, what's the smarts of it? Maybe I utilize my time. Maybe I wake up early and I'll do the DIY and do that stuff. And then I'll go out in the evening and see my friends. You can do both. Yeah. There's not one or the other. You can do both, or get your friends to help you. Come and get them in.
All my friends are super eager to come and help me, decorate stuff. So you'd be surprised how many friends would happily volunteer, and that's like a bonding exercise while getting something done. So it's true.
Right.
It's absolutely true. Well, Daddy, thank you so much for coming on to this episode. It's a big deal for me. I think I haven't really set in. It's been 3 years. I was 21 when I started this. It's 21. Yeah. So it feels great. It's only upwards from here. So I'm excited to see where Pennies To Pounds will go in the next year, aren't you?
Absolutely. You've got some good plans. I know
you know the ins and outs, but Dad knows
I know it
what
all.
I'm working on.
I know it all, yeah.
Yeah. So it hopefully all materialise the way I want it to, and it'll be really fun. But I feel like should we tell the people what we've got planned for you and I?
Sure.
Should we tell them?
Go for it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, if you have enjoyed this episode, I hope you have. Thank you for listening and watching. My dad and I, we have decided to make this more of a recurring thing. I think you've got a wealth of wisdom that it would be a crime if we didn't share it. It would be criminal, wouldn't it?
Thank you.
Exactly. Well, you're welcome. So we are starting a new segment on the last Sunday of every month. The name is still TBC. We're still trying to figure out names, what we're going to call it. But
or maybe people got ideas.
If you got any ideas, let us know.
Yeah, sure.
Tweet us, message us on Instagram. Just let us know what name you think. But yeah, the last Sunday of every month now, we're going to be doing a segment. So Dad will be here to impart some of his knowledge like he has today, and also answer some dilemmas, because people send me in questions all the time of their own personal circumstances, and I think you will have that dad edge to give to them. I'm just be warned now. I will be truthful. Man, that's very honest. Yeah. If you want to hear nice fluffy things all the time, that won't be the segment. Go elsewhere. Because we're not about that. No sugarcoating around here. No, none of that. No. So sometimes you just need to hear the truth. Sure. You may not like it, but you just got to hear it. But I'm happy to give. But it's not about putting you down. It's about we're going to be positive. Yeah. We're trying to help, but that comes sometimes at the cost is the truth. So, yes, it's going to be so good. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. And we're back again, the normal schedule on Monday with a brand new episode. Thank you.